In the previous movie, we discussed the two characteristics of a project, that it be temporary and that it be undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. In this movie, we will discuss a third characteristic, progressive elaboration. What this means is that a project begins with a broad scope description and receives further elaboration as the project moves forward. The project team will elaborate on the project scope as they receive the full set of deliverables and objectives to be accomplished. We'll look at an example in a moment, but let's make sure you're with me so far. At the start of the project, there is a broadly defined scope. Think of it as a funnel. As we move further down or further into the project, the funnel gets smaller, just as the scope is more tightly developed until we have a complete understanding of the work to be done. We see that visually here. As the project progresses, we can see that the definition of the scope becomes more focused. Here, we started with a broad set of deliverables. Then, additional detail was added. And finally, we drilled down to result in the final scope of the project. Progressive elaboration is something that is planned and done with purpose. There should be a reason for a project to proceed in this manner, else we encounter something called scope creep. I like to point out that progressive elaboration is not considered to be scope creep. Again, that is because it is done with coordinated and planned intent. Scope creep means that additional scope is added to the project after the project's objectives have been defined, and typically it affects the project's costs, resources, and time. This is one of the top reasons that projects frequently are over budget, they miss their deadlines, or they fail. Here are a few examples in which you may see progressive elaboration within projects. In some cases, you may have a project where research will play a large factor in determining the route of the project. For example, let's say that our project objective was to increase the health of residents within a senior living community. Then we were able to determine that the health of the residents was primarily affected by low levels of exercise. Our project scope may be further defined by specifying that the objective is to incorporate a fitness program within the senior living community. In other cases, the project must be further elaborated as the defining characteristics of a project are defined, which would lead up to the defining process itself. Similar to the first, you may also encounter projects that rely on testing results. For example, if a project involved detoxifying the soil on a 1-acre property, and the soil testing results would determine the detoxification process, then those results would determine how the project would move forward. What we just reviewed are some examples of scenarios where progressive elaboration would be required within a project. There are other scenarios you may encounter. On an ending note, remember it is important that when approaching a project with the intent of progressively elaborating the project scope, that it be done in a coordinated fashion and with planned intent.